One of the things that you need to be able to do as a respiratory therapist is math. I could give you all kinds of math equations and problems to do, but I thought let's make it something a little bit more interesting that you really care about, and that is grades. So grade calculations, there are three main types of grade calculations that get used, and various professors use various types. There is one that's called total points. That's how many points you earned out of how many points you could have earned. There are percentages. This is where you take the percentages of each of the grades to come up with a final grade. And there are weighted grades. So let's talk about the first type. I want to point out that there are rounding rules. Anything 0.1 to 0.4 you round down. Anything 0.5 to 0.9 you round up. And round at the end. Don't round each time that you do the calculation. So let's look at the total points. Here you're going to take the total points earned divided by the total points available. Now, this works in two different ways. You're used to seeing this on an assignment or an exam. So let's say you earned 40 points, but it was worth 50 points. So what is that grade? Well, you take the 40 divided by 50, and you're going to come up with 0.8 or 80%. Remember, to change a decimal to a percentage, you multiply it by 100. So this is what happens usually on a test. But there are course grades that utilize this method as well. And I'm going to show you what can be advantages and disadvantages to this. If you're using it in a course grade, it's all the points possible divided into all the points earned. This means that small pointed projects, quizzes, whatever, have less impact than something that is worth more points. So let's look at, you take an exam. In exam number 1, you get 120 points. That 120 points is out of 150 points. So what does that equal? Well, we take the 120 and we divide it by 150, and we get 0.8 or 80%. Next, you take a quiz. And you got 9 points on that quiz out of 10 total possible. Now, this is pretty easy math. So 9 divided by 10 is 0.9 or 90%. Now, where it becomes a problem is you earned 129 points. But there were a total of 160 points available. So if we were doing your course grade using point method only, your grade would be an 80.6%. And that's because the 10 points, the quiz, is significantly less impactful than the 150 points for the exam. Now let's compare that to percentages. In percentages, for course grades, all the percentage points are averaged together. This allows all the grades to be of equal importance, regardless of how many points are on it. So we're going to take the example we had before. You got the 120 points on your exam out of 150 points, and that gave you an 80%. On your quiz, you got 9 points out of the 10 available. That gave you a 90%. In this scenario, we are going to take the 80% and we're going to add it to the 90%, and we're going to divide it by 2 because we have 2 grades. This means that the 80 and the 90 have equal importance in your grade. And when we do that, we end up with an 85%. Now, if you were going to a school where they do pluses and minuses, okay, the first way with the points would be a B minus. This way, with the percentages, would be just a B. So it does have an impact on your grade. This is the method that we use for course grades in the respiratory therapy program. Now, course grades can be weighted. And what we do here is the percentages of certain sections make up a percentage of the whole 100% of your grade. And this is what we use to calculate final course grades in the respiratory program. So if we're looking at exams, we take all the percentages, add them together, and divide the number by the exams. This is the percentage formula that we discussed previously. So in Respiratory 120, we'll talk about, the exams equal 50% of your final grade, and the final exam equals the other 50% of your final grade. So, let's take all the exams, all the percentages added together, and divide by the number of exams. And this is the formula we discussed previously. So, on the first exam, you got a 98%. On the second exam, you didn't do quite as well. You got an 82%. And on your third exam, you did a little better. You got an 85%. So if we add those three numbers together and divide by 3, we get 88%. Now, because these are my exam grades and they make up 50% of my overall grade, I'm going to multiply that number by 50%, or 0.5. So I'll take 88 times 0.5. 88 times 0.5 gives me 44. Now my final exam, I'm going to take the percentage of that final exam and multiply it by the 50% because it's only one exam. Well, I bombed the final. I got a 55%. Now I'm sweating it. Am I going to pass the course? Well, I'm going to take that 55% times the 0.5, and that's going to give me 27.5. Then I'm going to add the two numbers together to get the final grade. So the 50% from the exams was 44, and the 50% from the final exam is 27.5. And when you add those together, you get 71.5%, meaning my overall final grade for the course would be a 71.5 or a 72%, which would be considered a passing grade. Now in the next video, we're going to talk about calculating what grade do you actually need on the final or on your next exam in order to pass. And we're also going to talk about grade point averages.